Hi everyone, welcome to Build One Productivity Hub solution using Microsoft Teams and Microsoft Graph Toolkit session. My name is Ayça Baş and I'm a cloud advocate at Microsoft Developer Relations Organization. This session was delivered in the Global Microsoft 365 Developer Bootcamp for EMEA, APAC, and Americas time zones. Today, I would like to walk you through the topics and the materials to show you how you can build this solution by yourself after watching this video. So let's start. So this is our timeline. We just completed the welcome. Now we will have an overview of our topics. Then we will have a lab walkthrough before you start working on the lab. However, if you're interested in jumping into the lab straightforward, feel free to visit https://ak.ms/oneproductivityhub to find the lab materials. Let's check out our agenda today. We will start with an overview of M365 platform. After that, we will go through the relations of Microsoft Graph and Teams. Then we will jump into building Teams apps and consuming Graph in those apps. Finally, we will discover Microsoft Graph Toolkit, which is a part of our solution today. All right, let's start. Let's do a quick recap of Microsoft 365 platform and the role Graph plays within the M365 platform. Graph is the developer experience that allows you to create both user-centric experiences and automation workflow processes that interact with M365 services. Think of it as the gateway to our M365 data. Experiences you can build using Graph can be grouped into three categories: user-centric apps, background process automation solutions, and analytics apps. Today, we are focusing on user interactive experiences. Okay, so let's put a real description here. What is Microsoft Graph exactly? How and where we can use it? With Microsoft Graph, apps and services can leverage an incredibly rich data set from M365. Graph service directs the calls to the right resource so developers don't need to worry about where exactly data lives. Some of these scenarios can be building apps with richer content, access deep insights generated from usage patterns such as trending documents, best team meeting times, or who people usually work with. Developers can also build apps with deep insights based on machine learning algorithms that power some of the Graph APIs. Also, developers can build apps with real-time updates of the data. So, we consider Microsoft Graph as the gateway to data and intelligence in M365, and it gives developers to a unified programmability model to take advantage of this huge amount of data in Office 365, Enterprise Mobility and Security, and Windows 10, also Dynamics 365 Business Central. Well, we all know that Microsoft Graph and Teams are better together, but how? Let's take a look at the Microsoft Teams apps first. For Teams, we can build tabs, bots, connectors, and any of the listed on the left. Our Teams app will be running on web server, either in the cloud or on-premise, anywhere you want with any application stack. And the Teams app package will be a simple zip file containing app manifest, full color icon, and outline icon. Our Teams app schema will be a JSON schema, which all versions are available on Microsoft Teams public GitHub repository. Okay. This is the high-level overview of a Teams application architecture. Our app interface can be any of the following: tabs, bots, messaging extension. Then we will build our app by consuming Microsoft Graph APIs, cognitive services. If our app is a bot, we can use Bot Framework SDK and host the app on Azure Bot Service. If we build a web app or tab, we can host the app on Azure App Service or anywhere on-premise. We can build our app using low-code, no-code tools such as Power Platform tools. In the end user will interact with our app through Microsoft Teams as a bot, tab, or anything we created. I would like to introduce you the Microsoft Teams Toolkit, which is an extension for Visual Studio and Visual Studio Code. With this great tool, we can build Teams bots, tabs, and messaging extensions in 3 minutes. Let's see how do we do that. We will go through Microsoft Teams documentations and we will see where you can find Teams Toolkit in the documentations, and we will try out how we can build apps using the toolkit. Okay, I will open my browser. Then I will type ak.ms/teams-quickstart. This is the official Quick Start documentation for Teams apps developers. Here, you can find great resources to start with. We have all related stuff for building apps for Teams. We have tabs, messaging extensions, as well as bots, webhooks. We also have Microsoft Graph for Teams, where you can find out Teams APIs under Graph. And finally, we have low-code solutions for Microsoft Teams applications. Quickly, let's check out the Graph APIs for Teams. If I click here, you will be directed to the official page of Teams APIs available under Microsoft Graph. This is actually a great resource, great documentation if you're willing to create some background process automations for Teams, such as creating a team from scratch automatically, adding members automatically, or adding new channels, adding tabs, installing apps, and so on. These APIs can be consumed through your apps. These can be either Teams apps, or you can consume these APIs from anywhere you like. So this documentation has a great explanation about how you can consume and leverage from the APIs. So let's go to the toolkit. I'll go to ak.ms/t-toolkit. Let's take a note. This is the official link for the Teams Toolkit documentation. If you're looking for a step-by-step documentation, how to install the toolkit, how to create your first app for the toolkit, how to import your existing package, project package, and so on, this is the best place to check out. This has all the details about the extension for Visual Studio Code, and if you're building your app on Visual Studio, there is also a documentation available for Visual Studio. So here you will be guided through the setup and all details about how to consume toolkit and how to create your apps through the toolkit. Let's try out. I'll open my Visual Studio Code. Then first thing I will do is how to install my Visual Studio Code Toolkit extension. I will go to the extensions. Then I will type Microsoft Teams Toolkit. Then the first option available on the list is our extension, Microsoft Teams Toolkit. I'll click, then here it is installed for me already, but you can click on the install button, then you're good to go. You can create your tab, bot, or messaging extension. There's also a great documentation available under details. You can find prerequisites, contents, features, how to set up, how to create your first app, and all the details. When you install the toolkit, you will see the icon of Microsoft Teams on the left side. And if you click on that icon, you will open the Microsoft Teams Toolkit. This is the place we are going to create our Teams apps. I will click on create a new Teams app. Then I will give it a name. Let's say Teams-tab. I will click enter. Then I will create a new folder under my desktop. I can give any name, teams dash tabs. I will click choose workplace folder. Then here, I can add any capabilities I want. If you are willing to create a tab, then you can switch on tab. If you would like to create a bot or messaging extension, you can also choose that. This is the place where we're going to set up our project. So I will switch on tab for this demo, then click next. Here we can add capabilities and configure our tab with a type of tab we would like to create. We can choose and create personal tab. We can also create group or teams channel tab. We can create both of them under the same tab project. For now, I will keep it personal tab and click finish. Here in seconds, I have my project available. So it's a very easy way to create a tab, bot, or messaging extension for Microsoft Teams. And also in the README file, there's a great documentation for us. It includes prerequisites, build and run, how to build our project and run our project. It's npm install and start. Also, how to deploy and test our app locally. It's going to be ngrok, and all of the necessary documentations and all of the necessary parts available here. So if you're willing to build that Teams application, I think Teams Toolkit is the best toolkit. We can create our app in a second without any code. Okay, we learned how to use Microsoft Teams Toolkit and build apps for Microsoft Teams. Now we are going to discover how are we going to consume Graph in Microsoft Teams applications. First of all, to build an app using Graph and consuming Graph, there are some steps we recommend you to follow. First, you can check out the official documentation of Graph. You can go to ak.ms/m-graph. Then I highly recommend you to go through the Graph Explorer, which is a great open source tool for you to use and learn about Graph a little bit more. Then the next step is going to be registering your app to the identity platform, Microsoft Azure Active Directory. After that, we will configure our app permissions. Then we will use msal for sign in and get a token to be able to consume our Graph in our app. Then the last point is going to be making calls using either Graph SDKs, or we can consume Graph as just like a REST API, or we can use Graph through the Microsoft Graph Toolkit, which is going to be the part of our solution today. So let's check out what are the documentations and what are the places that we can discover and learn more about Microsoft Graph. First, I will open my browser. Then I will go to ak.ms/m-graph. This is the official documentation and actually the start point for learning Graph. This documentation has everything related with Graph. Let's say that this is the 0 point for the Graph developers. We have overview, we have services and features. You can also go to Graph Explorer from here. Then if you're interested in what's new in Graph, you can click on here. Also, we have references for both version 1 and beta. I think the best part of this documentation for me is quick starts and tutorials. Let's click on quick starts first, then check out what is available. Quick starts are 3 minutes quick starts for the language or platform you prefer to consume Graph API. So all of these languages and platforms has available setup and prerequisites documentation for you. If I click any of them, I will be directed to a 3-minute start documentation. So for example, let's click Angular, and if I scroll down, I will see like what are the setups I need to walk through and complete before I consume graph, and what is the next point for me. Then let's check out what are the tutorials. Tutorials are 30-minute tutorials for any of the languages and platform you prefer to consume graph, and each of these has applications created from scratch, not just like having application and putting the API there, but we build application with you, and then we start consuming graph with the SDKs available. So at the end, you will have an app up and running and consuming graph in the background for getting calendar, getting tasks data, getting emails, and so on and so forth. Let's check out one of them. I'll click on Android. Let's say that you're building an Android application for Android users. Then in the introduction part, you will find out prerequisites. Then the next step is going to be creating an Android app. Then at the end, in Get Calendar Data, you will see how to consume graph from the Android mobile app. Then the last point is going to be the congratulations. This is the point where we have our Android app up and running and consuming graph in the background. So in this case, I think tutorials are the great place to start and learn how to use graph in any of the language or platform you'd like to try out. So yeah, and the last point I'd like to highlight is the Enter65 developer program. If you click on the developer program tab, you can go to join, and if you click on join, you will be directed to the Enter65 developer program page. So this is the place where you can get a free tenant to be able to learn about Microsoft 365 platforms, APIs, and here, as long as you use your tenant, you use your accounts under your tenant, then you will continue having the free tenant. If you join this program, it's literally giving you a free sandbox, tools, and resources you need to build solutions and to be able to consume any of the tools and get Enter65 platform. So if you click on join now, you will be directed to the next step for participating in the program. Next, we will go to aka.ms/g-explorer. Let's note down, this is the official Graph Explorer link. We will be directed to a Graph Explorer shortly. First of all, the best part of the Explorer is the login part. When I sign into Graph Explorer, I will not only be seeing any of the data, random data from response preview, but I will see my own data in the response preview. So this is really important for me because at the end of the day, I would like to build an application for my customers or for myself or for partners and so on. I think testing with your own data is quite necessary to understand how graph is working. Here on the bottom under sample queries, you will find number of different sample queries. Actually, Graph has more than hundreds of APIs available. So if you search any of them here, you will just find out the related API you like. Let's start with my profile. If I click on my profile, on the bottom, this is going to be my own data. I will see my display name, my email, my principal name, ID, and so on. At the same time, if I search anything in the sample queries, like for example, calendar, then if I scroll down, I will click on all events in my calendar. Again, here the query has changed. Then I can change the API version of the API I'd like to use. It can be version 1 or beta. If I change it, it will automatically change for me. I can also change the request. It's not only get, but if you would like to create a new event for calendar, let's say, Then you can click on post and you can create a request body here. Then you can create a new event directly using the Graph Explorer. At the end of the day, my response preview again is going to be my own events in the calendar. This is great because you understand what's going to be the response preview and you will get the response header. And another good part of the Graph Explorer is the code snippets. If you're interested in building your application with C#, you can just grab this code, and this code is changing for any of the queries you like to use. Let's say you want to get calendar events, then you can just grab the C# code, copy paste to your application, then you will be able to get calendar data after the authentication. As you see here, the code is me.events. In this case, I'm getting the calendar invite. If I change it to something else, like related to Teams, this code will be changing as well. Same thing for JavaScript. You can just copy paste this code to your app, then it will be there working. Same thing for Java and Objective-C. Another good thing about the Explorer is the embedded Toolkit component. I know that this doesn't work, Calendar doesn't have the component available under Explorer, but here, if I change it to my profile, this Toolkit component will give me related component here, so that I can just copy this HTML piece, paste it in my app, then my graph will be consumed through the HTML part of my application. This Toolkit component is not available for all of the Graph APIs, so that's why I just converted from Calendar to Profile, because Profile has the Toolkit component. So the last part is adaptive cards. If adaptive card is available for the selected API, you will also see it under the adaptive cards tab. Also, for the sake of the content today, we can also search for, let's say, Teams. If you're looking for Teams APIs, they are also available under the Explorer. So you can choose any of the Teams APIs you like. It's available for beta and version 1, and then you can try it out from the Explorer. I think Microsoft Graph Explorer is the great place to learn about Graph, test it before you jumping into building something. Then you will understand the concept, and then you will start building something from scratch with Graph. Let's continue with the slides. So we think of app development on something of a continuum where complexity increases as you move from left to right. You can use Microsoft Graph to power low or no-code solutions. It can be end-user apps. You can use pre-built scaffolds and customize them with the reference solutions, or you can create entirely new, highly customized applications, which is usually the scenario for our customers. Let's continue with Microsoft Graph Toolkit and ask the main question: what is Microsoft Graph Toolkit? Graph Toolkit is a collection of framework-agnostic web components powered by Microsoft Graph. These components work automatically with Graph without any customization needed. Also, these components work in any modern browser, or you can consume those components from any of the web framework you like. And who is it for? Any developer who would like to consume Graph from web app, Teams tab, or SharePoint web part, you would be interested in Microsoft Graph Toolkit. And what is the benefit of using Microsoft Graph Toolkit? First of all, it cuts development time for the developer. It's easy to add UI components and access Microsoft Graph. With few lines of code, we can achieve entire authentication flow in the background, and we can get any M365 data we like. Secondly, it's quite flexible, so we don't need to worry about the framework or browser we want to use. It works with any web framework or modern browser. Let's start with the component. We have number of components we can just grab, copy and paste to our HTML files, and it will get the data for us automatically. These components start with login, agenda, tasks, people, person, people picker, person card, Teams channel picker, and get. There's a great place for you to learn and practice with these components. We call it Playground. If you go to mgt.dev, you will be directed to Microsoft Graph Toolkit Playground. This is a great place for us to explore what are the components, how to use them, how we can customize and make it look however we would like to make it look. And I think it's really nice to practice from here. Then you can start working on your own application and consume components there. Let's take a look how our toolkit documentation looks like, as well as the playground. I will open my browser. Then I will type ak.ms/g-toolkit. This is the official documentation link for us for the Graph Toolkit. The Toolkit overview documentation has all of the information needed for us, what is in the toolkit, all of the components listed here, all of the providers as well listed here. For us, there are 5 providers available, and we will discuss that later. And why we need to use Toolkit, who should use it, where we can use it, all the details. Also, if you're new in Graph Toolkit, you can go to Get Started part. If you extend it, you will see that there are great resources for the new developers who are getting to know Microsoft Graph Toolkit from scratch. As you can see, we have overview, build a web application, build a SharePoint web part, build a Microsoft Teams tab, and also using Toolkit in React or Angular applications. These are great examples. If you go to overview, you can find how to build application from scratch, and these are the guidance for us, how to consume graph in different places. Also, for our own content, it's important to check out build a Microsoft Teams tab in the official documentation, because our lab has this part. We are going to consume Toolkit in the Teams tab. I'll click it quickly. Then here you can follow this track and you can consume your Graph Toolkit in the Teams tab. Yeah, so let's go to the playground. I will type mgt.dev. This is the link for our playground. Here, let me just close down. Yeah, okay, so these are our components, and on the left you see a canvas. Canvas is the place where we can see how we get our data when we use any of the components. In this case, we are using MGT agenda, and on the left we are getting all of the events in our agenda. And this is available for all of the components. Here, if I change anything, let's say group by day, on the left, I should see the difference. Now I have date, and it is showing events under the date, under the related date. Here, changes should happen in a second. So this is available for all of the components. You can try out and see the changes. At the same time, if you don't know what you can change in your component, let's say we don't know what is available under MGT agenda, we can click on Docs on the right side. If you are under MGT agenda, you will be directed to the documentation for MGT agenda specifically. Here you can see the results for us. There are attributes we can use with this component. Also, there are properties we can use. If you're interested in creating events, you can also use events. We have CSS, and I think this is a great documentation if you want to go deep with any of the components. Also, each and every component has some stories for us, how we can leverage from these attributes, properties, and so on. Some examples for agenda is get by event query and get by date. So how to do that is available as well. And if you change any of the following attributes or properties, you will see the changes on the top. So documentation and canvas is available for all the other components. Here, for example, for person on the canvas, you can see that this is the query and these are the scenario stories for us, how we can leverage from that. So this is the tasks. And on the left, this is the result for using MGT tasks. There are also other samples like login to show agenda. For example, this is how it's going to look like. There are some templating as examples. For example, person card, additional details, Teams messages. If you would like to get Teams messages, then here on the right we have code, on the left we have the canvas. Yes, we made it. So now we are in the lab walkthrough. After lab walkthrough, you will be the one working on the lab and building the solution. Let's check out what is one productivity hub solution. What are we going to build today? This was originally one of my customers' requests, having one platform for checking emails, calendar, and tasks for their employees. When it comes to the productivity, I believe Teams is the best place to collaborate, learn, and work. So today we will build one productivity hub as a Teams tab, and then we will start adding our emails, tasks, calendar events using Microsoft Graph Toolkit components. So how are we going to do that? This is how are we going to do that. This is the workflow we are going to follow. First, we will get the extension for Visual Studio Code, which is the Microsoft Teams Toolkit extension. Then, by clicking a couple of steps, we will create a custom Microsoft Teams tab. Next, we will start building our applications on the Microsoft Teams tab. We will build authentication pop-up using MGT Teams Provider. Then, once we get the access token from the user, we will start consuming our own components. If you'd like to get tasks, we will consume tasks. If you would like to get the login component, we will consume login. But before that, to be able to get the access token from the user, we will need to register our application to Azure Active Directory. Then finally, once we are done building our app and once we have all of the required components, finally, we will go to Microsoft Teams App Studio. Then we will test our tab locally. And this is the all steps we will go through. To be able to do that, you can go to https://oneproductivityhub. This is going to direct you to the lab GitHub page, and you can start following the lab instructions. Let's quickly go and check how our GitHub repository looks like. I'll open my browser, go to ak.ms/oneproductivityhub. This is the link for us for our One Productivity Hub. We will be directed to our lab page. Here we have our lab, we have our solution file. If you would like to cheat and get the solution from here, you can also get it. And this is our presentation, and you can get the presentation from here. And we have the summary about the lab, and we have the final result, what we are looking for. This is the prerequisites for us to complete And this is the workshop materials. Finally, you will see some signs in the lab materials. You will see some notes, important points, challenges, and make sure and be aware that there will be some challenges in the lab exercise too. And let's go into one of the parts. I'll go part 0, which is the setup. Here on the top, you can find out where you are and you can follow the next step from here. You will see all descriptions, important parts are highlighted for you, and I can continue to the next part when I'm done. At the same time, if you like, there's also a next step available for you on the bottom. Yes, so this is the material for us. And step by step, make sure you check out the important parts, you check out the notes, and you complete the challenges during the lab. And with that, this is time for you to go hands-on. Hands-on, everybody. Go to wiki.ms/OneProductivityHub. Start building your One Productivity Hub solution. This is where we are in the agenda. We completed our welcome, overview, and lab walkthrough. Now it's time for you to play. Thank you everyone for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed the session. Good luck with the lab materials.